My husband slept with his ex-wife the night I moved out over their work friendship, then hid 4 years of wedding photos in a box he said he burned. When I finally opened up about our fertility struggles, he rolled his eyes and said, "Emma, it was one mistake. You're making it weird." I didn't say a word. That was 11 weeks ago. This morning, he was sitting on my sister's porch in the rain, holding a fake DNA test and crying like it could undo the truth. Jacob and I had been married 3 years, and Jacob mentioned his ex exactly once, saying it was a brief mistake at 22, 6 months max, barely worth mentioning. He started this marketing job 6 months ago, and wouldn't shut up about his hilarious coworker Lucy, who gets his humor and helps with presentations. I even noticed he was dressing better and thought, "Aw, he's taking pride in his appearance for work." Meanwhile, we'd been trying for a baby for a year with no luck. One day I decided to surprise him during lunch with Thai food from his favorite place downtown. The receptionist wasn't at her desk when I walked into the office building, so I wandered down the hallway, and that's when I heard Jacob laughing. Not his polite work laugh, but his real one, the kind that made his whole face scrunch up. It was coming from the conference room at the end of the hall. Through the glass, I saw this gorgeous blonde. Her hand was on his arm, and they were leaning toward each other like conspirators sharing secrets. The way she touched him wasn't explicit exactly, but it was definitely intimate. Jacob was smiling at her the way he used to smile at me when we first started dating. I just walked in and said, "Hi, honey, brought you lunch." Jacob's face drained of color so fast I thought he might pass out. The silence stretched between us for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then she smiled, this perfect hostess smile, and extended her hand. "You must be Lucy," she said. "I'm Maria, the original wife." The words hit me like physical objects. Jacob's mouth was opening and closing like a fish, while Maria just kept smiling that perfect smile. Her hand still extended toward me like this was a normal introduction at a cocktail party. Then she continued and started talking casually about her fiancé Charles, while inviting herself to lunch with us. She's a senior director, successful, and started making jokes about how they should have been business partners, not spouses. Other coworkers stopped by acting totally normal about the ex-spouse's situation, and mentioned their coupled presentation. Everyone knew, except me. In the car ride later, Jacob got defensive, saying 4 years isn't long, and he didn't lie. He mentioned their daily 8 a.m. coffee meetings, but "It's professional, Emma, don't be weird." That night, I checked his work on Slack, and there I found hundreds of messages. Nothing explicit, but definitely intimate, like, "Remember our old apartment," and "Charles doesn't understand my work stress like you did." I found a message where Lucy sent the job listing saying, "I miss having you around." Jacob replied, "Emma doesn't need to know we'd be working together right away." I went FBI mode finding their college photos. Turns out they were that couple. Disgustingly in love, married at 22, divorced at 26, only because she got promoted to London. At our fertility appointment next week, Jacob was texting constantly. I saw Lucy's contact pulled up. When the doctor mentioned stress affects fertility, Jacob suggested we take a break from trying. When I demanded he switch departments or find another job, he called me controlling. The Christmas party was the final straw. They worked the room together while her fiancé looked lost. Lucy pulled me aside saying they have a rare business connection, and I shouldn't make him choose between success and me. After weeks of fighting, I moved to my sister's. Jacob texted for 3 days, then went totally silent. I thought our marriage was done. And then the final straw came on Instagram. I saw Lucy's post about them winning Partnership of the Year, and Lucy calling him her work husband in the caption. That was it. I was ready to mentally check out and start the process. But then the strangest thing happened. 2 weeks later, Jacob showed up saying he quit his job and wanted me back, out of nowhere. He told me Lucy tried stopping him with a promotion, but he chose me instead. And I don't know why it was so easy for him, but it was. And for the first time in months, I felt hope. I agreed to try. And very soon, we picked up where we left off. We were cooking together again, we were laughing, and then one random Tuesday, the doorbell rang. It was Lucy, on our porch, mascara streaming down her face as she said, "I'm pregnant and don't know who the father is." The silence was deafening. She explained it happened once when I left. They were drunk and sad. Could be Charles's, but timing means it could be Jacob's too. I saw the truth on Jacob's face before he could speak. I walked to my car with Jacob screaming my name. Then Lucy sent a text saying, "If it's his, I deserve to know." I got in my car and drove to a parking lot 3 blocks away and just sat there, watching families walk by with their kids. Normal families. Families where the husband didn't sleep with his ex-wife the moment things got hard. The next morning, I woke up at my sister's place to find 17 missed calls from Jacob and 43 text messages. Most were variations of, "Please let me explain," and "It meant nothing." But the one that made me throw my phone across the room was Lucy's. "We need to schedule a paternity test. Charles deserves to know too." My sister made me breakfast while I stared at the wall. She didn't say anything when I couldn't eat, just wrap the plate and put it in the fridge. Around noon, Jacob showed up at her door. I watched from the upstairs window as he stood there, flowers in hand, looking like he hadn't slept. My sister didn't let him in. He left the flowers on the porch and drove away. That afternoon, Lucy called me directly. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Her voice was different, not the confident senior director tone I'd gotten used to. She sounded tired, maybe even scared. She asked if we could meet, just the two of us. Against every instinct screaming at me, I agreed. We met at a coffee shop downtown, not the one where she and Jacob had their morning meetings. She was already there when I arrived. No makeup, hair in a messy bun. For the first time, she looked human instead of perfect. She pushed a folder across the table before I even sat down. "These are the forms for the paternity test," she said. "I've already made the appointment for next week." I stared at the papers, the clinical language making everything feel surreal. She kept talking, explaining how Charles was devastated but supportive, how she'd already started looking at apartments in case things went badly. Then she said something that made me look up. "I'm not doing the test." The words hung between us like a challenge. I watched her fold the papers back up and slide them into her purse. She explained that she'd thought about it all night, and she couldn't do that to her baby. Couldn't reduce its existence to a percentage on a piece of paper. She was keeping it regardless, and whoever the father was would just have to deal with her decision. "That's not fair," I heard myself say. "You can't just—" "I can," she interrupted, "and I am. I'm moving back home to be with my parents. They have a place in Oregon. Charles is coming with me. We're going to raise this baby together, and if it turns out to look exactly like Jacob in a few years, well, we'll cross that bridge then." I sat there, speechless, as she gathered her things. Before leaving, she paused and looked back at me. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not for loving him once, but for letting myself believe we could be friends without consequences." She left, and I sat in that coffee shop for another hour, trying to process what had just happened. Lucy was leaving, taking her pregnancy and all its questions with her. over, leaving me to wonder for possibly years whether my husband had fathered a child with another woman. When I got back to my sister's, Jacob's car was in the driveway. He was sitting on the porch steps, head in his hands. He looked up when he heard me approach, and I saw he'd been crying. Real tears, not the manipulative kind I'd seen him use in arguments before. She told me, he said, about not doing the test, about leaving. I stood there, keys in my hand, not moving closer. He started talking faster, words tumbling out about how he'd already contacted a lawyer, how he could force a paternity test, how he wouldn't let her do this to us. But I was barely listening because my phone had started buzzing with a number I didn't recognize. The text was simple, a photo of Jacob and Lucy from college, standing in front of what looked like a courthouse. They were both wearing white, holding hands, smiling like they'd won the lottery. The caption read, "You think you know everything?" Jacob was still talking when I showed him the phone. His face went white again, that same color from the conference room. He reached for the phone, but I pulled it back. Another text came through, this one a photo of them at what was clearly their wedding reception. Lucy in a full wedding dress, Jacob in a tux, feeding each other cake. "You said 6 months," I whispered. "You said it was barely worth mentioning." He started stammering about how it wasn't a real wedding, just a courthouse thing, how they were young and stupid. But more photos kept coming. Their honeymoon in Hawaii, their first apartment, Christmas with her parents, 4 years of a life he'd reduced to a footnote. "I have all of these," he said desperately, "in a box in the garage. I kept them because I don't know why I kept them, but I never looked at them, Emma. I swear I never." "You said you destroyed them." My voice sounded strange, calm in a way that scared me. "When I asked about photos, you said you destroyed everything." More texts arrived. These were different. Screenshots of emails between Jacob and Lucy from just last month, before I'd found out about their past. Him complaining about our fertility struggles, her offering comfort, him saying he missed having someone who understood him. I left him on the porch and went inside. My sister took one look at my face and poured me a glass of wine. I showed her the texts, and she cursed creatively for 5 solid minutes. We tried calling the number, but it went straight to a generic voicemail. Whoever was sending these wanted me to see them but didn't want to talk. That night, I made a decision. I went back to our house while Jacob was at work. I needed clothes and some documents, but mostly I needed to see this box he'd mentioned. I found it exactly where he'd said, pushed behind old camping gear we never used. The box was bigger than I'd expected. Not just photos, but letters, ticket stubs, a dried corsage from some dance. Their entire relationship preserved like a museum exhibit. At the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, was a wedding album. Professional photos of a ceremony that was definitely not just a courthouse thing. There were at least 50 guests, a 3-tier cake, Lucy in a designer dress that probably cost more than our car. I was sitting on the garage floor, surrounded by evidence of my husband's real first marriage, when my phone rang. It was my doctor's office, calling about test results from my last visit. I'd been so distracted by everything that I'd forgotten about the blood work they'd done. "Congratulations, Mrs. Patterson," the nurse said. "Your pregnancy test came back positive. Based on your levels, you're about 6 weeks along." I hung up without saying anything. 6 weeks. Right around when I'd left Jacob the first time, when he'd been hammered and sad and Lucy had been there to comfort him. The timing was a sick joke. I was pregnant with the baby we'd tried so hard for, while his ex might be pregnant with his child from a one-night mistake. I spent the next 3 weeks in a haze. Jacob tried everything to get me to come home. Flowers arrived daily at my sister's. He wrote letters explaining his side, each one more desperate than the last. He even got his mother to call me, though she hung up pretty quickly after I explained the situation. The anonymous texts kept coming. More photos, more emails, more evidence of a relationship that was way more than 6 months. Whoever was sending them had access to things from their entire relationship. College photos, wedding pictures, even some from after their divorce that showed them meeting for coffee, for lunch, for drinks. Lucy, true to her word, had vanished. Her social media went dark. The company announced she'd taken a position with their Portland office. Charles changed his relationship status to, "It's complicated," and then disappeared too. It was like they'd both just evaporated, taking all the answers with them. I was at my 12-week appointment, staring at the ultrasound screen, when the nurse asked if my husband was coming. I'd been going to appointments alone, not ready to tell Jacob about the pregnancy yet, but sitting there, watching that tiny heartbeat on the screen, I realized I couldn't do this alone. This baby deserved better than parents who couldn't even be in the same room. I texted Jacob a photo of the ultrasound. His response was immediate. "Is this real?" We met at a park, neutral ground. He cried when I confirmed the pregnancy. Real tears of joy that made my chest hurt. He talked about names, about turning the spare room into a nursery, about being the father he'd always wanted to be. I let him talk, let him dream, before bringing up the elephant in the room. "What if Lucy's baby is yours too?" He stopped mid-sentence about crib shopping. We sat in silence for a long time, watching kids play on the swings. Finally, he said something that surprised me. "I hired a private investigator." The PI had been tracking Lucy's movements, trying to find a way to force the paternity test. But what he'd found was more interesting. Lucy had been to 3 different doctors in the past month, all for pregnancy-related appointments. The dates he'd gathered suggested she was further along than she'd claimed, maybe 8 weeks instead of 6, which would mean it might not be mine, Jacob said quietly. The timing. If she's 8 weeks, that's before but we both knew that was just hope talking. Pregnancy dating wasn't exact. A 2-week difference didn't mean anything definitive. We were still stuck in limbo, waiting for a truth that might never come. That's when my phone buzzed with another anonymous text. This time it wasn't a photo. It was a message. "Ask Lucy about the fertility clinic." Jacob grabbed the phone before I could stop him. We both stared at the words, trying to make sense of them. What fertility clinic? Lucy had gotten pregnant accidentally, hadn't she? Or at least that's what she'd claimed. I called Lucy's old assistant, who'd always been friendly with me. She was hesitant at first, but when I mentioned the fertility clinic, she got quiet. Then she told me something that changed everything. Lucy had been going to a fertility specialist for months. She and Charles had been trying to conceive for over a year with no success. She was devastated, the assistant said. That's why she threw herself into work so much. It's why she and Charles were having problems. The pieces started falling into place. Lucy desperate for a baby. Jacob vulnerable and hammered. The timing of her confession, right when we were reconciling. The refusal to take a paternity test. Moving away before anyone could ask too many questions. But I still needed proof. The PI Jacob hired was good, but I was better. I'd learned from the best after all. 3 years of marriage to someone who could lie about a 4-year relationship taught you things. I started making calls, pretending to be Lucy's assistant, needing to transfer medical records. It's amazing what people will tell you if you sound confident enough. What I found made me sick. Lucy had been to the fertility clinic the day after she slept with Jacob, not for treatment, but for a pregnancy test. A blood test that would show results earlier than a home test. She'd known she was pregnant before she slept with my husband. The baby was Charles's, had always been Charles's, but she'd seen an opportunity and taken it. I had the proof printed out, sitting in a folder like the one she'd brought to the coffee shop, but I didn't know what to do with it. Part of me wanted to destroy her, to send it to Charles, to Jacob, to her parents, to everyone. But another part of me, the part growing a baby of my own, just wanted it to be over. That's when the final text came through. This time there was a return number that didn't go to voicemail. When I called, a familiar voice answered. "Hello, Emma." It was Charles. He'd been sending the photos, the evidence, everything. He'd known about Jacob and Lucy's past all along, had found the photos when they moved in together. He'd suspected something was happening between them at work, had hired someone to watch them. When Lucy announced her pregnancy and tried to claim it might be Jacob's, he'd snapped. "I know the baby's mine," he said. "The timing doesn't work for it to be anyone else's." But she wanted him. She's always wanted him. I was just the consolation prize. He'd been sending me evidence to hurt her the way she'd hurt him, to destroy the fantasy she'd built around Jacob, to make sure I knew exactly who I was married to and who she really was. But sitting there, listening to his broken voice, I realized we were all just collateral damage in Lucy and Jacob's inability to let go of the past. I thanked Charles for the truth and hung up. Then I did something that surprised even me. I drove to Jacob's hotel, the folder of evidence in my hand. He opened the door looking hopeful, probably thinking I was there to reconcile. Instead, I handed him the papers. I watched him read through everything, watched the realization dawn on his face. Lucy had played him, played us both. The baby wasn't his, had never been his. She'd just wanted to blow up our marriage, to have one last chance to mean something to him. "I'm keeping our baby," I told him, "but I'm done with you, with her, with all of this drama." He tried to argue, to say that now that we knew the truth, we could move forward. But I was already walking away, because the truth was, it didn't matter whose baby Lucy was carrying. What mattered was that when things got hard, when we were struggling, Jacob's first instinct was to turn to her. What mattered was that he'd lied about their past, minimized it, hidden it, until it exploded in our faces. I filed for divorce the next week. Jacob fought it at first, but when I made it clear I'd go for full custody if he pushed me, he backed down. We worked out a custody agreement that would let him be involved with our baby, but kept our lives separate. He moved to a different department at work, finally making the change I'd begged for months earlier. Lucy had her baby 3 months later. A girl, according to the birth announcement her mother sent to everyone they knew. The photo showed Charles holding the baby, Lucy nowhere to be seen in the announcement. My sister heard through the grapevine that they'd separated, that Lucy was raising the baby alone in Oregon while Charles stayed in Portland for work. I had my son 2 months after that. Jacob was there for the birth, holding my hand through contractions despite everything. When the nurse placed our baby on my chest, I saw Jacob cry for the 3rd time in our entire relationship. He whispered promises to our son about being a better man, a better father than he'd been a husband. We named him after my grandfather, not any of the names Jacob had suggested during that hopeful afternoon in the park. Jacob got weekends and Wednesdays, and he never missed a visit. He turned into a good father, attentive and loving in a way he'd never been as a husband. Maybe losing me had finally taught him what was important. I ran into Lucy once, about a year later. I was at a park with my son when I saw her pushing a stroller. We made eye contact across the playground, both freezing for a moment. She looked tired but good, her daughter babbling happily in the stroller. We didn't speak, just nodded at each other and went our separate ways. Some stories don't need an epilogue. The anonymous text stopped after Charles revealed himself. Jacob never tried to contact Lucy again, as far as I knew. He dated occasionally, but nothing serious. Focusing on being a dad during his time with our son, I dated too. Eventually meeting someone who didn't have a secret ex-wife waiting to implode everything. Looking at my son now, playing with blocks while his father helps him stack them during his Wednesday visit, I can see pieces of both of us in him. Jacob's eyes, but my stubborn chin. His father's laugh, but my determination. He's perfect, worth every moment of pain that brought him here. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Lucy had just taken the test, if she'd given us the truth instead of leaving us in limbo. But then I realize it wouldn't have mattered. The damage was already done the moment Jacob decided to keep his past hidden, the moment Lucy decided to use a pregnancy to try to win him back, the moment they both chose their history over our futures. My phone buzzes with a text from my boyfriend, asking if I want to grab dinner after Jacob picks up the baby. I smile and text back yes, already thinking about the life I'm building now. It's smaller than what I'd planned, quieter, but it's honest. No hidden exes, no secret photos, no lies disguised as protection. The doorbell rings and Jacob's here for his visit. We do the handoff smoothly now, no longer needing to speak beyond scheduling. He tells our son he loves him, kisses his head, and walks out with the diaper bag I've packed. I watch from the window as he carefully buckles the car seat, double-checking like he always does. My sister says I'm too nice, that I should hate him more. But hate takes energy I'd rather spend on my son, on building something better than what we had. Lucy's gone, living her own consequences in Oregon. Jacob's here but separate, being the father he should have been while married to someone else now. And me? I'm finally free from both of them, raising my son in a home without secrets, without lies, without the ghost of a marriage that should have ended years before it began. The truth did set us free, just not in the way any of us expected. And maybe that's the most honest ending of all. The truth did set us free, just not in the way any of us expected. And maybe that's the most honest ending of all. At least that's what I kept telling myself as I closed the door behind Jacob. But freedom felt hollow when my phone started buzzing with another unknown number. My stomach dropped. Charles had promised the messages would stop after he revealed himself. This was a different number entirely. The text contained a single line: check your mailbox. I peered through the window first, scanning the street for any unfamiliar cars. Nothing seemed out of place. Still, my hands trembled as I walked to the mailbox. Inside was a manila envelope with no return address, just my name written in neat handwriting I didn't recognize. Back inside, I spread the contents across my kitchen table. More photos, but these were different, recent ones. Lucy at a grocery store in Oregon, clearly pregnant, taken from across the parking lot. Lucy at a doctor's appointment. Lucy meeting with someone whose face was obscured by the angle. My blood ran cold when I realized someone had been following her. The last item made my heart stop. A DNA test kit, still sealed, with a sticky note attached. She lied about more than the timing. I called Charles immediately, but his number was disconnected. His social media had vanished overnight. Even his LinkedIn profile showed as deleted. It was like he'd never existed. My next call was to Lucy's old assistant, but she claimed she'd never heard of any Charles. Charles. The company directory I'd saved showed no record of him either. My sister arrived within minutes of my panicked call. She examined the photos while I paced the living room, trying to make sense of what was happening. Emma, she said slowly, look at the date stamps on these photos. They were all from before Lucy claimed to be pregnant, weeks before. In some, she was clearly already showing. The timeline made no sense unless she'd been pregnant much longer than anyone knew. That evening, I did something I'd sworn I'd never do again. I drove to Jacob's apartment. He answered the door with our son on his hip, his expression shifting from surprise to concern when he saw my face. I showed him everything while our baby played with toys on the living room floor. This doesn't make sense, Jacob muttered, studying the photos. Charles was real. I met him dozens of times. We all went to lunch together. But when he tried to pull up Charles's contact in his phone, it was gone. His work emails with Charles had vanished from the server. Even the photos from the company Christmas party showed Lucy standing alone where Charles should have been. Someone had systematically erased him from existence. The DNA test kit sat between us like a loaded weapon. Neither of us spoke for several minutes, watching our son stack blocks with intense concentration. Finally, Jacob broke the silence. What if she was never with Charles at all? What if this whole thing was... His phone rang before he could finish. Lucy's name flashed on the screen. We both froze. She hadn't contacted either of us since leaving for Oregon. Jacob put it on speaker. I know you got the package. Lucy's voice was different, harder than I remembered. Stop digging, Emma, for your son's sake. What did you do? I demanded. Who was Charles? Her laugh was bitter. Charles was necessary, just like the pregnancy story was necessary. You have no idea what you've stumbled into. The line went dead. When Jacob tried to call back, the number was already disconnected. We sat in stunned silence until the baby started fussing for dinner. I fed him while Jacob ordered takeout, both of us trying to process what had just happened. Over Chinese food, we pieced together what we could remember. Charles had appeared in Lucy's life right around the time she'd started working closely with Jacob again. He'd been perfect, almost too perfect. Successful, handsome, understanding about her work relationship with her ex-husband. Never jealous, never questioning. The fertility clinic, I said suddenly. Your PI found records of her going to a fertility clinic. But what if it wasn't for fertility treatments? Jacob pulled out his laptop and started searching. Most fertility clinics also offered prenatal care. If Lucy had been pregnant longer than she claimed, she could have been hiding it, going for secret appointments while pretending to struggle with conception. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This time it was a video file. Lucy, sitting in what looked like a hotel room, speaking directly to the camera. The timestamp showed it was recorded 3 days ago. Emma, by the time you see this, I'll be gone. Really gone this time. What I did was wrong, but it was the only way. The baby isn't Jacob's. It was never Jacob's. But it's not Charles's either because Charles was never real. I hired him, an actor, someone to play a part. I gripped Jacob's arm as she continued. I've been pregnant for 7 months. The father is. It doesn't matter who he is. What matters is that he's dangerous. The kind of man who doesn't let go. I needed to disappear, but he was watching me. So I created a story that would make sense. A workplace affair, a pregnancy scandal, a reason to leave town that everyone would believe. The video quality was poor, but I could see tears on her face. I used you both. I'm sorry. The night with Jacob never happened. I drugged his drink at the office party, took him to a hotel, and took photos of him passed out to make it look real. He never touched me. I needed him to believe it happened so you would believe it. I needed the drama, the scandal, something big enough that my leaving would seem like running from shame instead of running for my life. Jacob's face had gone pale. He grabbed his phone, scrolling through his photos from that night. There were hours missing from his memory, gaps he'd attributed to drinking too much, but he rarely drank to excess, especially at work events. Lucy's message continued. The anonymous messages were me. I'm sorry, Emma. I needed you to hate me, to hate Jacob, to be so caught up in your own drama that you wouldn't question why I was really leaving. Charles was supposed to send them, to play the wronged fiancé, but he got cold feet. Actors aren't used to real consequences. She leaned closer to the camera. Don't look for me. Don't try to find the truth about the father. Just know that your baby is Jacob's only child. The DNA test in that package, it's fake. I sent it to throw you off if you got too close. Be happy, Emma. Be the family I pretended to threaten. And forget I ever existed. The video ended. We sat in silence, processing what we'd just learned. Everything had been a lie, but not the lie we thought. Lucy hadn't been trying to steal Jacob back. She'd been using us as cover for her escape from someone else entirely. The photos of our wedding, Jacob said slowly. How did she get those? I really did destroy them years ago. I thought about the box in the garage, the one I'd found with all their memories. Maybe she kept copies. Maybe she's been planning this for longer than we think. Over the next few days, we tried to verify Lucy's story. The actor playing Charles had vanished, but Jacob found a casting website with his headshot under a different name. The hotel confirmed Jacob had checked in alone the night of the supposed affair, too intoxicated to stand properly. Security footage showed Lucy helping him to the room, then leaving 20 minutes later. The fertility clinic records were real, but when I called pretending to be Lucy's insurance company, they revealed she'd been coming for prenatal care, not fertility treatments. Her first appointment was 2 months before she'd started working with Jacob again. She planned all of this, I said, staring at the timeline we'd created on Jacob's kitchen wall. Getting the job where you worked, becoming your friend again, setting up the whole scandal. But why? Who was she running from? That answer came from an unexpected source. Maria, the real one who'd introduced herself as the original wife that day in the conference room, called me out of the blue. She was Lucy's cousin, had been visiting the office that day, and her comment about being the original was a family joke gone wrong. She'd heard about Lucy's sudden departure and was worried. Lucy was involved with someone before she came back, Maria told me over coffee. She never told me his name, but she was terrified of him. Changed her phone number 3 times, moved apartments twice. When she got pregnant, she panicked, said he could never know about the baby. The pieces finally clicked into place. Lucy had orchestrated an elaborate deception to protect herself and her child. She'd used her history with Jacob, knowing it would create a believable scandal. She'd manipulated me into leaving him, knowing it would make her pregnancy confession more credible. Every single move had been calculated to create a story that would let her disappear without raising suspicions about the real reason. We were just props, I said to Jacob that night as we gave our son a bath. In her escape plan, we were just convenient props. But understanding Lucy's motives didn't undo the damage. Trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. Jacob and I tried counseling, tried to rebuild what her lies had destroyed. Some days were better than others. We'd laugh at something our son did, and for a moment, it felt like before. Then one of us would remember, and the walls would go back up. The DNA test kit still sat in my drawer, unused. Part of me wanted to send send it to Lucy, to force her to prove her story. But what would be the point? Whether she'd lied then or was lying now, the result was the same. Our marriage had become collateral damage in someone else's war. 3 months after Lucy's video confession, I was at the park with my son when I noticed a man watching us. He was well-dressed, sitting on a bench with a newspaper, but his eyes kept drifting to where we were playing. My maternal instincts kicked in immediately. I casually gathered our things and headed for the car. He followed. Not obviously, but I'd learned to pay attention after everything with Lucy. He stayed 3 cars back, made every turn I did. My heart pounded as I drove to the police station instead of home. He disappeared as soon as I pulled into the parking lot. I filed a report, but without a license plate or clear threat, there wasn't much they could do. The officer suggested it might be related to my divorce proceedings, maybe a private investigator, but something in my gut said otherwise. That night, I called Jacob and told him about the man. He came over immediately, insisting on staying on the couch. For the first time in months, I was grateful for his presence. We double-checked all the locks, installed a new security system the next day, but the feeling of being watched persisted. A week later, Maria called again. Lucy had reached out to her just once to say she was safe, but Maria had traced the call. Lucy wasn't in Oregon. She'd never been in Oregon. The birth announcement, the updates about raising the baby alone, all of it had been false trails. She's scared, Emma, Maria said. Really scared. She kept saying she was sorry about what she did to you and Jacob, but that it was the only way. I thought about the man in the park, about the feeling of being watched. Maria, did Lucy ever describe the father? Anything at all? There was a long pause. Just that he had resources. The kind of person who could find anyone, anywhere. She said he'd never let her go if he knew about the baby. That night, I made a decision. I called Jacob and told him everything Maria had said. We agreed that whether Lucy's story was true or not, we couldn't take chances with our son's safety. We varied our routines, stayed vigilant, and slowly started working together instead of against each other. The man from the park never reappeared, but others did. Different faces, but the same watchful presence. Sometimes at the grocery store, sometimes at the pediatrician's office, never threatening, just observing. Jacob started documenting everything, taking photos when he could. We built a file, just in case. 6 months after Lucy's disappearance, an envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was a single photo. Lucy holding a baby, standing in front of a house I didn't recognize. She looked different with shorter, darker hair, but her smile was genuine in a way I'd never seen before. On the back, in her handwriting, "Thank you for the diversion. We're safe." Jacob and I stood in my kitchen, staring at the photo. Our son played at our feet, babbling happily. The elaborate deception, the pain, the months of confusion, it had all been for this. To give Lucy and her child a chance at freedom from whoever had made her so desperate. "Do you think he's still looking for her?" Jacob asked. I thought about the watchers, about how they'd gradually disappeared over the past month. I think he was looking for us, trying to find her through us. But our story, our very public drama, it must have convinced him she really did run because of a workplace scandal. We burned the photo that night, watching it curl into ash in the sink. No evidence of where Lucy had gone, no trail for anyone to follow. It was the least we could do after being unwitting accomplices in her escape. Jacob and I never fully reconciled. Too much had happened. Too many lies had been told, even if they weren't originally our lies. But we found a new rhythm, a partnership based on our son rather than our marriage. We dated other people eventually, but carefully, always aware that Lucy's past might still cast shadows on our future. The watchers never returned. The mysterious packages stopped. Charles, or whatever his real name was, remained a ghost. And Lucy became a story we didn't tell. A secret we kept not out of shame, but out of understanding. She'd used us, manipulated us, destroyed our marriage in the process, but she'd done it to save her child from something worse than a messy divorce. I still check my mailbox with caution, still scan parking lots for familiar strangers, still wonder sometimes if Lucy's danger will find its way back to us. But mostly, I focus on raising my son in a world where women don't have to orchestrate elaborate deceptions to escape dangerous men, where marriages aren't casualties of other people's wars, where truth, even when it hurts, is better than the most beautiful lie. Jacob picks up our son every Wednesday and every weekend, just as scheduled. We're polite, even friendly sometimes. We share stories about our son's latest adventures, coordinate schedules, navigate the complexities of co-parenting. Neither of us mentions Lucy anymore. That chapter is closed, sealed with the understanding that some truths are too dangerous to pursue. But late at night, when I check the locks one more time and peek into my son's room to watch him sleep, I think about her. Somewhere out there, Lucy is doing the same thing, checking on her child, living under another name, free from whatever made her desperate enough to destroy the lives of people she'd once cared about. And despite everything, I hope she stays hidden. I hope her child grows up safe. I hope the elaborate lie she told gives her the truth she needed, a life without fear. The irony isn't lost on me. Lucy's deception revealed Jacob's lies about their past. Her false pregnancy exposed the cracks in our marriage. Her manufactured drama showed us who we really were under pressure. In trying to save herself, she'd forced us to face truths we'd been avoiding. We just hadn't known that the biggest truth of all was that none of it had been about us at all. My phone buzzes with a text from the man I've been seeing for the past few months. He's nice, straightforward, with no ex-wives lurking in his past. He doesn't know the full story about Lucy, just that my ex-husband and I had a complicated split. Some stories are too strange to share on a 3rd date, or a 10th, or maybe ever. I text him back, confirming our plans for tomorrow. Life moves forward, even when the past leaves questions unanswered. Lucy is gone, living her truth somewhere we'll never find her. Jacob and I have found our own separate truths, and our son, innocent of all of it, will grow up with his own truth that he was wanted, loved, and worth every complicated moment that brought him into being. The doorbell rings, and I freeze out of habit before remembering it's just the food delivery I ordered. Normal life, normal problems, normal solutions, no more elaborate deceptions or hidden agendas, just the simple truth of everyday existence, which feels like a luxury after everything we've been through. As I eat my dinner and watch mindless TV, I realize that Lucy's greatest gift to us wasn't the truth she finally told, but the lies she'd exposed along the way. We'd all been lying to ourselves in different ways. Jacob about his past, me about the state of our marriage, Lucy about who she really was. The elaborate deception had stripped all of that away, leaving us with nothing but raw honesty. And maybe that's what we'd needed all along. Not the fairy tale of perfect marriages and simple relationships, but the messy truth of human complexity. Lucy had shown us that sometimes lies are told not out of malice, but out of necessity. That sometimes the truth is too dangerous to tell. That sometimes the best thing you can do for the people you care about is to let them believe a lie that sets them free. Tomorrow, Jacob will come for his Wednesday visit. We'll do our usual dance of polite conversation and careful boundaries. He'll take our son to the park, maybe the same one where I first noticed we were being watched, but he'll be vigilant now, aware in a way he never was before. Lucy's legacy, perhaps. The knowledge that danger can wear a familiar face, that trust must be earned and re-earned, that love alone isn't always enough to keep us safe. The next morning, I woke with a queasy stomach that had nothing to do with last night's takeout. I barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up, my sister holding my hair back while making concerned noises. She suggested food poisoning, but something felt different. The nausea came in waves, worse in the morning, better by afternoon. 3 days of this pattern made me drive to the pharmacy. I bought 5 different pregnancy tests, telling myself I was being paranoid, but sitting on my bathroom floor 20 minutes later, staring at 5 positive results, paranoia turned into shock. The timing lined up with those desperate weeks after leaving Jacob, before Lucy's bombshell arrival. My hands shook as I called my doctor's office for confirmation. The blood test came back the next day. 8 weeks pregnant. 8 weeks of carrying a baby while my world imploded around me. 8 weeks of stress and drama that couldn't have been good for the tiny life growing inside me. I sat in my car outside the clinic, trying to process this new reality. My phone buzzed with another unknown number. This time, the message was different. The paternity results are in. Check your email. My heart hammered as I opened my email. There it was, from a lab I didn't recognize, with Lucy's name and Jacob's listed as potential father. The results were clear. 0% probability of paternity. Jacob wasn't the father of Lucy's baby. He never had been, but something felt wrong. The lab's logo looked off, the formatting strange. I forwarded it to Jacob without comment, then drove to his apartment. He was already on his laptop when I arrived, our son napping in his playpen. This is fake, Jacob said immediately. Look at the case number. It doesn't match any format I've seen, and this lab doesn't exist. I checked. We spent the next hour researching, finding nothing about the supposed testing facility. Another manipulation, another lie. But why send fake results showing Jacob wasn't the father? If Lucy wanted to maintain her cover story, wouldn't she want us to keep believing he might be? My phone rang. Lucy's number. But when I answered, it was a man's voice, deep, controlled, with an accent I couldn't place. You received my message, he said. It wasn't a question. Who is this? Someone who's been looking for Lucy for 7 months. She's very good at hiding, but not good enough. I know about the baby. My baby. My blood turned to ice. Jacob grabbed the phone, putting it on speaker. If you're the father, why the elaborate deception? Jacob demanded. The man laughed, a sound without humor. Because Lucy is clever. She knew I'd never let her leave with my child, so she created a scandal, a reason to run that had nothing to do with me. But I'm patient. I waited. I watched. And now I know the truth. We don't know where she is, I said quickly. No, but you'll help me find her. Or I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man Jacob Patterson really is. The photos Lucy took that night at the hotel, they're quite compromising, even if nothing happened. Your new boyfriend might be interested too, Emma. Ale, isn't it? Nice man. Shame if he learned about your complicated history. The line went dead. Jacob and I stared at each other, the implications sinking in. This man had been watching us, knew about Ale, knew details about our lives. Lucy hadn't been paranoid. She'd been protecting her child from someone genuinely dangerous. We have to warn her, I said. How? We don't even know where she is. But I remembered something. Maria had traced Lucy's call. She might have more information. I called her immediately, explaining the situation in rushed words. Maria went quiet for a long moment. Lucy gave me an emergency contact, she finally said. Made me promise to only use it if her life was in danger. I think this qualifies. She gave me a number with an area code I didn't recognize. When I called, it rang once before an automated voice said, leave a message after the tone. Lucy, it's Emma. He called us. The real father. He knows about the baby, knows you lied. He's threatening to expose Jacob, to hurt us if we don't help find you. I don't know what to do. Please, if you get this. I trailed off, not sure how to end the message. Jacob took the phone. Lucy, I know you were protecting your child. We understand now, but he's not going to stop. We need to work together on this. Please. We waited. An hour passed, then 2. I was starting to lose hope when my phone buzzed. A text from Lucy. Meet me tomorrow. Sunrise. The place where you first saw us together. Come alone, both of you. No phones. The conference room where I'd first seen them laughing together. It felt like a lifetime ago, though it had only been months. Jacob and I spent the rest of the day preparing, unsure what we were preparing for. I arranged for my sister to watch our son, telling her we had an early meeting with a lawyer. We arrived at the office building before dawn, using Jacob's keycard to enter. The conference room was dark, but Lucy was already there, sitting at the far end of the table. She looked different. Hair dyed black, clothes that didn't fit her usual style, shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. You shouldn't have come, she said as we sat down. We didn't have a choice, I replied. He's threatening us. Lucy nodded, unsurprised. His name is Alexandra. We met when I was in London. He seemed perfect at first. Charming, successful, attentive. By the time I realized what he really was, it was too late. He'd isolated me from everyone, controlled every aspect of my life. She pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. Inside were police reports, medical records, photos of bruises, a documented history of abuse that made my stomach turn. I tried to leave 3 times. Each time he found me. The last time he nearly culled me. That's when I knew I had to be smarter. I came back here thinking an ocean would be enough distance. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. He'd never let me go if he knew about the baby. So you created an elaborate lie, Jacob said. I created a believable reason to disappear. The affair, the pregnancy scandal, the paternity question. It was all designed to make him think I'd run for different reasons. And it worked. For 7 months, it worked. What changed? I asked. You started digging too deep. The fake Charles, the timeline inconsistencies. I knew eventually someone would piece it together. So I tried to give you enough truth to make you stop looking. But Alexandra must have been watching the whole time, waiting for cracks in the story. A sound in the hallway made us all freeze. Footsteps getting closer. Lucy's face went white. He's here, she whispered. He must have followed you. The door opened, and a man walked in, tall, impeccably dressed, with cold eyes that seemed to catalog everything at once. He smiled when he saw Lucy, the expression not reaching his eyes. Hello, darling. You've led me on quite a chase. Lucy stood, positioning herself behind the table. How did you find me? I never lost you. I simply waited for you to make a mistake. Using your ex-husband as cover was clever, but you've always been too sentimental. I knew you'd eventually try to make amends. He turned to us. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, thank you for your assistance. You can go now. We're not going anywhere, Jacob said, standing. Alexandra's smile smile widened. How noble. But this is between Lucy and me. Our child deserves to know its father. You mean the child you'll use to control her forever? I found myself saying. The child you'll hurt to keep her in line? His eyes flicked to me, assessing. You know nothing about our relationship. I know enough. I pulled out my phone, showing him I'd been recording the entire conversation. I know you just admitted to stalking her, following her across continents. That's enough for a restraining order at minimum. You're recording this? Lucy asked, hope creeping into her voice. Since the moment he walked in, and it's uploading to the cloud in real time. So whatever you're planning, McAlexandra, know that there's evidence. His face darkened. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Neither do you, Jacob said. See, Lucy's not alone anymore. She has witnesses. She has proof. And she has people willing to stand up for her. McAlexandra took a step toward Lucy, but Jacob moved between them. I'd never seen my ex-husband look more determined. You need to leave, Jacob said. Now, before security arrives. I own security companies, McAlexandra sneered. You think your little building guards concern me? Maybe not, I said. But the police might. I called them before we came in, told them about the threats, about your stalking. They're very interested in talking to you. It was a bluff, but he didn't know that. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. He looked at Lucy, then at us, calculating odds. This isn't over, he said finally. I'll get my child, one way or another. Try it, Lucy said, finding her voice. I have evidence of everything you did to me. Photos, medical records, police reports from London. Come near my child, and I'll destroy you. He left without another word, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. We sat in silence for several minutes, afraid to move, afraid he might return. Is it really uploading to the cloud? Lucy asked finally. I showed her my phone. Everything, including his admission of stalking, his threats, all of it. She started crying then, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I've been so scared for so long. I didn't think I'd ever be free. You're not free yet, Jacob said gently, but you're not alone anymore either. We spent the next 3 hours in that conference room planning. Lucy had been living under an assumed name in a small town 2 states away, not Oregon as she'd led everyone to believe. She'd had her baby, a daughter, a month ago. The constant fear and stress had been destroying her. I need to file for a restraining order, she said, but I was afraid it would lead him to me. Now you have witnesses, I pointed out, and evidence of his stalking. That changes everything. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister, asking when I'd be home. Reality crashed back in. We had lives to return to, responsibilities beyond this crisis. What now? Lucy asked, looking lost. Now you fight back legally, Jacob said. Use the system. File the restraining order. Document everything. And know that if you need witnesses, you have them. Lucy looked at me then, really looked at me. After everything I did to you both, why would you help me? I thought about it, my hand unconsciously moving to my still flat stomach where my own baby grew. Because no one should have to live in fear. And because maybe, in a twisted way, your lies saved us too. Forced us to see truths we'd been avoiding. We exchanged real contact information, not emergency numbers or fake emails. Lucy promised to keep us updated on the legal proceedings. As we prepared to leave, she stopped us. The night with Jacob, nothing really did happen. I need you to know that. I drugged his drink, took him to the hotel, staged the photos, but he never touched me. I couldn't do that to either of you, even for my cover story. Jacob closed his eyes, relief visible on his face. Thank you for telling us. We left the building together, Lucy heading to her car while Jacob and I stood in the parking lot. The sun was fully up now, warming the cool morning air. I'm pregnant, I told him. The words came out without planning, hanging between us like a challenge. His face went through several emotions before settling on joy. Really? How far along? 8 weeks. I found out yesterday, right before the fake paternity results came through. That's amazing, Emma. Another baby. Our son will have a sibling. I haven't decided what to do yet, I said carefully. About us, I mean. This doesn't change everything that happened. I know, but maybe it's a chance to do better, to be better. I thought about Lucy, about the elaborate deception she'd created to protect her child, about the lies we tell ourselves and others, about the truths that sometimes hide beneath. We'll see, I said finally, one day at a time. Over the next few weeks, life took on a strange new rhythm. Lucy filed her restraining order with our testimony supporting her claims. McAlexandra hired expensive lawyers, but the evidence was overwhelming. The order was granted, extending to Lucy's daughter as well. I continued my pregnancy appointments, Jacob coming to some but not all. We were careful with each other, rebuilding trust slowly. My relationship with Ailey ended, not because of Jacob, but because I needed time to figure out who I was after everything that had happened. Lucy sent updates through her lawyer. McAlexandra had tried several tactics to circumvent the restraining order, each attempt documented and reported, but having witnesses, having support, had changed everything. She wasn't running anymore. 3 months later, I was showing properly, my son excited about becoming a big brother. Jacob and I had started couples counseling, working through the damage with professional help. We weren't back together, but we were finding a new way forward. Lucy came to visit once, bringing her daughter. We met at a park, watching our children play. Her daughter had her eyes, but nothing of McAlexandra's cold demeanor. She was bright, happy, safe. I'm moving back, Lucy told us. Not here exactly, but close enough. I'm tired of hiding. What about work? Jacob asked. I'm starting my own consulting firm. Working for myself means no one can use my job against me again. She looked good, stronger. The haunted look had faded from her eyes. I owe you both everything, she said. You don't owe us anything, I replied. We all did what we had to do. My phone buzzed with an appointment reminder. 20-week ultrasound tomorrow. The big one, where we'd find out the baby's gender. Jacob would be there, of course. We were good at appointments now, at sharing the important moments even if we couldn't share everything. As I gathered my things to leave, Lucy caught my hand. I know my lies hurt you, destroyed your marriage. I'll carry that guilt forever. Your lies exposed truths we needed to see, I said. Maybe it would have ended anyway. At least this way, we know why. The restraining order held. McAlexandra eventually gave up, moving on to torment someone else, hopefully someone with less strength than Lucy had found. She raised her daughter in peace, building a life free from fear. Jacob and I never fully reconciled, but we became excellent co-parents. Our son thrived with 2 homes full of love instead of one filled with hidden resentments. When our daughter was born, he was there, holding my hand, being the support he'd learned to be too late for our marriage but just in time for our family. I started dating again eventually, carefully, with full disclosure about my complicated past. Some men ran, others stayed. I learned to be okay with both responses. Lucy became a friend, oddly enough. Bonded by trauma and truth, we found an unexpected connection. Our children played together, 3 kids who would never know the full story of how their lives intersected. Looking back, I sometimes marvel at the strange path that led us here. Lucy's elaborate deception, meant to save her child, had saved us all in different ways. From lies had come truth. From destruction had come rebuilding. From fear had come strength. My daughter is 6 months old now. She has Jacob's smile and my stubborn streak. Her brother adores her, helps with feedings, sings her silly songs. We're a family, just not the traditional kind. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Jacob will pick up both kids for his visit. We'll do our usual handoff, polite and efficient. He'll mention that he's dating someone new, a teacher from our son's school. I'll be genuinely happy for him. Lucy will text later, asking if we want to meet for coffee this weekend. Her daughter is walking now, getting into everything. We'll laugh about toddler chaos while keeping one eye always watching. A habit born from harder times. The truth did set us free eventually, just not in any way we could have imagined when this all began. But maybe that's the most honest ending of all. Messy, complicated, imperfect, but real. My phone buzzes. Another appointment reminder. Life moving forward, one small moment at a time. No more elaborate deceptions or hidden truths, just the simple complexity of lives intertwined by chance, choice, and the lengths we'll go to protect the ones we love.